Okay, and I believe we are live. Yes, we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube. Welcome everyone to the Feel Inspired podcast. I have got an amazing guest today. And unlike some of my previous guests, this one I actually do know a little bit about her. We actually met first time, I think, back towards the end of 2015. We were at a networking event. We've remained connected ever since. And Manmeet and I also have a very strong connection because she is the only accredited John Martini trainer in the UK, I believe. Is the correct phrase, terminology, is that right?
No, not the only accredited, but to senior in Europe. There are other accredited, yeah, just different levels. That's all it is.
Gotcha, no worries. And in the past, I've gone and done a lot of stuff with John Martini as well. I've done a lot of his courses. I've had a chance to spend some one-to-one time with him as well. And I've always been a great admirer of his knowledge, his work, his teachings, and someone who has so much power behind what they say. And I think that that's sometimes quite hard to come by. But he's an individual who's very certain of what he says. He's a very big believer in everything that he says. Like nothing he says is wasted. It comes from true understanding and true experience. So before I do the proper introduction of Manmeet, so once again, for anyone who's new joining this for the first time, my name is Amit Sodha, and this is the Feel Inspired podcast. And this is my space I created to help people feel inspired. I wanted to recreate those moments where people see something, read something, hear a podcast, read a book, whatever it might be. And in that instant, they have that awakening, which helps become the catalyst for the change for the rest of their life. And that's what I wanted to create here. And through having some amazing guests, and I've had some incredible ones. As you know, Manmeet, I posted that it's been a year since I started this.
Yay!
And you are guest number 17, and this is episode number 17 of the guest podcast. So I would like to, without further ado, give a huge welcome to the lovely Manmeet Chowdhry. So welcome to Feel Inspired.
Thank you. First of all, what an amazing name. I loved it when you first ever came up with it, and a huge congratulations for getting to 1 year, and you have had some really inspiring guests. So, and I'm actually really inspired to be the 1 year anniversary type guest. So thank you so much.
Oh, you're welcome. Actually, I think it was today since it was aired. I think.
Oh, wow.
I think it was actually the 5th that I made the first announcement. So I could have been wrong. I need to double check it. But anyway, who cares, right? You're here now and you're with me, and it's a pleasure to have you here.
Thank you.
And like I said, so Manmeet comes from a very specific school of thinking, but obviously she embodies all her own teachers through her own experience as well. And today we're going to talk to you about kind of cultivating a powerful mindset, especially in challenging times. And I don't know about you, but I'm seeing it so much. And to be honest, in many ways, I'm feeling the effect, I would say as well, because of what everyone else is going through. I think I'm quite sensitive in that I pick up on the vibes of other people very easily. So I feel it too. But for me, it's meant I've had to work even harder to keep myself on the right frame of mind, so I can not only keep myself in the right direction, but help other people too. So I'm not surprised that people are feeling that way. There is so much going on, with coronavirus, the economy, the protest, the Black Lives Matter, the current climate of so much polarity going on right now. And in fact, we'll touch upon this whole polarity thing, because I think that's a fascinating subject as well. But, so much going on, right? So before we get to that, the crux of that though, Manmeet, why don't you introduce to everyone who you are, what you do, and kind of give you like a 5-minute summary of how you've got to this point as well. Like what led you to this point? What started you off on this journey? How you got to this point where you are right now?
Yeah, so as you said, Manmeet Chowdhry, and well, I am an optimum performance expert. So what I do is by using, obviously, as you said, some of the methodologies from Dr. Steve Martini and having a little bit of my own spin on it, I help people overcome emotional blocks that are holding them back from personal and professional performance too. And that comes from me actually realizing that both were connected. As much as I'd grown up being told, you can go to work and leave your own personal stuff at the door. And no matter how much you would try and do that, that just didn't actually end up happening. But I was going through my own journey, and around 2008, I realized that there was personal issues that were happening in my life that were absolutely having an effect on how I was showing up at work, my results. I've been in sales since I was basically 16, and typically been number one saleswoman in most of my roles. And then that's when really it just took a nosedive dip. And when it did that, I was like, okay, it's not that I don't know how to sell, so something else must be going on. And to the world, to the front, as we kind of do, now, because we've got so much more social media, I call it fake book and Insta sham. But off social media, it was more offline, and that was where you just kind of put this front up, and you're kind of trying to act all positive, and you're saying everything's great in my life and nothing is wrong at all. But on the inside, basically, I was really, really down with lots of stuff that was happening. I was going through some relationship issues, which I know you know a lot about. And I was also having some health issues, some family issues, and definitely some financial issues. So I like to call that period of my life, issuesgalore.com. So.
I love it. I love it how you can wrap it up in that now. It's easy to look back and do that, right? Of course.
Yeah, of course. And, I think whenever we go through things, right, we can always go like many days, weeks, years afterwards and go, oh, that was, what happened, and call it something different. But that was what really inspired me to bring me to Dr. Steve Martini's work. It wasn't about having to wait years before you could look back on something, but actually be able to transform your situation as you're going through it. So I've been doing positive thinking for a long time. And that was the very thing that I was trying to obtain in my life, trying to be happy and positive all the time. And that's where I was definitely being humbled by a lot of challenges to keep me in balance, as you said earlier, with the polarizations. So I'd gone so far down the rabbit hole that I say, and it almost felt like there was no light at the end of the tunnel. And I had actually thought of ending my life, because I thought that was the better option. I thought, well, rather than having to deal with all of this, I think the planet and everyone is just going to be much better if I just leave, So that was when I came across Dr. Steve Martini in my life. And I say, well, that definitely allowed me just to understand a lot more about how the universe works. How does our life work, when he spoke more about how to embrace both challenge and support, both the positive and negative, and not trying to obtain something that's unobtainable and trying to avoid the things that are unavoidable. So I started my journey with him back in 2008. And, I knew when I first attended his programs, it had such a transformational effect on me. I knew that I wanted to do that for other people, but I'm a real firm believer, don't try and put on other people's oxygen mask on before you've put your own on. So I just been continuously, I did a lot more vigorous work on myself then, and still do today. But of course, it was very much about, I'd say healing my perceived wounds at the time. So, and then I obviously took the journey of becoming a certified trainer and then a senior. And it feels like I've done a couple of degrees to get to where I am in his, in his mastery. So yeah, that's where I am now.
Beautiful, beautiful. And while I'm at it, I was just going to say as well, for anyone watching right now as well, don't forget you can pose any questions to Manmeet as well. I'm keeping an eye on the comments. So let us know if anything comes up, and even if it doesn't come up right now, because I'm the kind of person who will have 1,000 questions after it's over. You can always write questions after. We can always come back to you as well, so don't worry about that. Now, for anyone who doesn't know, by the way, Dr. John DeMartini was one of the people featured in The Secret. Famously, as I would affectionately call him, the man with curtains, the curtains haircut. Don't tell him I said that yet.
I think he'll agree. He knows.
And that's where I first came across him as well. And then I went to do. I did a few things with him actually. I did the Breakthrough Experience Weekend, but I also did. He did a speed reading course back then as well. And I did that with him, and then when I was on radio doing a chat show, I managed to spend some time with him and interview him, and but that's where he first Where I first came across him was in The Secret, and I believe actually you were on Professional Asian recently talking to Zam with John Martini as well.
Yeah.
Which must have been a good experience as well with so many people over there. But let's take a swoop right in then to talk about this issue of mindset, or this challenge of mindset right now. But firstly, what for you? Let's give it some terms of reference, because what does it mean to you? Because I know I have my own philosophy around mindset, what it means, and in terms of the whole concept of mastering your mind. But what does it mean for you? What does that whole term mean? Because everyone's got a kind of a different approach or a different kind of perception of what it actually means. So what does it mean to you?
Yeah, what a great question. I know I can expect great questions from, somebody like you that interviews so many people and such a big personality on radio. It's like, I can expect that. So basically, I think for me, in my perception, what I do perceive it to mean is, you've got the mind that's obviously made, when you ask, well, where is the mind? Firstly, right? There is, some people, some scientists kind of say, well, it's this kind of energy field outside of us. Some say it's in the brain. And in fact, science hasn't been able to prove where that is. So first of all, I like to say that to people, when someone comes to me and they go, I'm just out of my mind, and I go, really? I go, where is it to begin with for you to be out of, And it kind of, they just go, huh? What do you mean? So
what a way to take their state.
Yeah, exactly. So I think when we look at the mind, I'll bring it to, the brain itself, allowing us to have what we call emotional reactions. And it happens on any spectrum, being positive or negative, because anytime we're perceiving something to be positive, we're going to be infatuated with it. And, anytime anything that we have in our life, whether it be a guy, whether it be a business opportunity, whether it be a contract, whether it be if we're seeing more positives than negatives, it's going to take up time and space in our mind. And similarly, if we see something and perceive it to be negative, we see more challenges, we see more drawbacks. We're going to be on the other spectrum, and it's still going to take up time and space. So either one of these has us in an emotional reaction state. And what I think is so amazing about our brain is that we have something called, the prefrontal cortex, what some people call it like the executive mind. But that part of the brain, which typically is like here, allows us to step out of ourselves and basically look back and analyze things and be able to see things more objectively than subjectively. And I think what is so great about that, it allows us to get out of this emotional reaction and right back into action when we see more balance with things. And I think that's really key, is that it's not about swinging like the pendulum from one side to another. But it also doesn't mean that you're never going to be emotionally reactive. When you do learn how to manage your emotions, it just means that you might recognize, okay, I'm now seeing something to be a little bit more positive. What could possibly, be the downsides? If I see something to be negative, what could possibly be the upsides of what I'm going through? So that it allows you to come back and experience moments of, gratitude and balance. And that, when I say your mindset, is about mastering the mindset, allowing any emotional reactions that do come up and actually bring them back into balance, is what I would perceive to be mastery of your mind.
Beautifully put. I love that. And I think that what you've just said, not everyone will understand. And I don't mean that in a condescending way, but I just think it's one of these things that not everyone has kind of thought about it in that way.
Yeah.
And whereas I know you absolutely do, and you teach it, and I do as well. I call it the power of being centered, and everyone has a different terminology for it. But I think that how you explained it is different to what I would say in my terminology, but it's exactly the same concept, which is that we have this device through which we can I guess, not for what, for want of a better phrase, not rationalize, but actually kind of take an outside look, to an observer style look at our emotions, our reactions, what we're doing, what we're perceiving, and then ultimately through that decide to choose to see it a different way, act a different way, think a different way about it, perceive it a different way, whatever it might be. And I couldn't agree with you more. And I think that this is where the power begins. In fact, I was writing a script earlier about a new video and just talking about that very same thing, that it all starts with our perception, our choice, and our understanding that our mind is that tool, is that muscle that enables us to actually then direct and choose how we perceive. And I think that for me is always the genesis, the starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. And you put it lovely. It's simply put in the way that when we do, it's when we recognize it for sure. We have that choice, and when you said it's the perception choice, like when I understand, well, from what I understand, we only ever have control over three things, and that is our perception, and then our perception drives our decisions, which then drives our actions. So, obviously what you're saying is choices, is what I'm saying is decisions. And either way, that's going to drive our actions. And those are the only three things that we really have control over in our life. So, everything else is kind of like, it's running the show. It's how we then obviously react and act towards it too.
So I think, yeah, you make some amazing points there as well. And then I think ultimately now then the question becomes, okay, so what do you do in a situation? What the average Joe or Janet or Janine or whatever name that we want to attach to it can do in a situation where we've got so much going on in the world right now, so much perceived negativity, challenge, uncertainty, so many different things going on right now. How can one be expected to manage their mind, their emotions when, all this crap is going on, right? And it is, I mean, I think even for the most powerful human being in the world, there's quite a lot to process right now. I sometimes think to myself, what would I do when I put myself into my highest state? Even then, I sometimes struggle to think about what I would do in certain situations, especially in relation to everything that's going on right now. And I think then it makes me think about all the people who are perhaps not so emotionally prepared, or they haven't had the right nurturing to be in a situation where they can manage their mind, their emotions, and so forth. So for the person out there who's watching this and thinking, we often say it, don't we? It's all right for you to say you're already in a good place, right? But for someone who's struggling and not in that place right now, where can they start to sort of process and understand and make sense of everything that's going on? And also then as a result, kind of start to feel better and be not in control, but in being control of one's response to everything that's going on right now.
Yeah, I think you said it, the important word which you and I have both kind of used, but you said it in the sentence now, is like, what do we do with all the perceived negativity, And I think that perceive is our friend, because it is really about how we're seeing things. And when we see things more reactive, we're going to also show up in that way, whether it be in our business, whether it be in our relationships. It's going to affect whatever stance we take because of the way that we're seeing things. But if we just look at, and this might be a little shocking to people, but everything that's going on right now and has been through years and goes on every second and will continue to do so is neutral. And the only thing that makes it positive or negative is if we don't perceive it to either serve or that it's disserving. So any time, and disservice is just other words for positive or negative. So for example, during this time, I've been really busy with people because this is the time that they've needed to manage their emotions. And some of the entrepreneurs are going through quite a few challenges right now. Some have used the time to obviously use it as an opportunity and gone, right, how can I get into creation mode? How can I serve at this point? And some people have gone really down into, this is going to affect my business. I'm never going to be able to recover from this. I might as well just give up now. And these are just two ways at looking at the same problem. So I think what happens is, I mentioned that we're all, going on this one radio station. We're all operating from one radio station. I know you're on a very famous one, but the radio station that we're all operating from is WIIFM, and that is What's in It for Me. And until we see that whatever is going on serves what's in it for me, we will be emotionally reactive. And so when we're looking at anything that is challenging and we ask ourselves, how is that very situation helping me in achieving what's important to me? How is it helping me fulfill, what's important to me, and all areas of life, be that financially, how is it helping me? How is it helping me in my family? How is it helping me, physically? How does it help me in my spiritual quest? Like, if you start to ask such quality questions, and you're stacking up the benefits, how is it benefiting me, until you see that the very thing you're experiencing is on the way of your life, not in the way. If you don't get to that, you'll be emotionally reactive. And I'm a business owner too, and so it's not to say I didn't react, but it did take me, I wasn't reactive. I think the first emotional reaction I had about this coronavirus, for example, going on, was the day we went into lockdown. And the day that the speech was made, I really had an emotional reaction in that I was so annoyed that so much fear was being, driven into people, instilled into people based on media and based on what was being said, etc. And now that's what was going to drive them. And in fact, I knew that because I was emotionally reactive, if people are coming to me to have them, as you said, centered, unless I was centered myself, there was no way I was going to be able to help them. So I started to do quite a bit of work myself. I literally wrote down all the benefits of the coronavirus to me, and my business. And I also started to see what things I was able to create that I wouldn't have been able to. I mean, I created and did masterminds that have been on the back burner for a good few months, but now having the time and having the ability to have people access it online was definitely, something I could serve. And I think whenever we are in, when we don't follow whatever is a priority for us, and if we don't prioritize our day and we don't follow high priority actions in our life, we will be, caught with the mundane kind of, oh my God, this is really bad, this is going to bring us down. And you just look, you really go, like I said, and I, done back 2008, is just you go down that rabbit hole. And it didn't matter. I know, because I've been through it. It didn't matter what anyone said to me back then. There was no light at the end of the tunnel, until I firstly, like you said, made the choice that I do want to look at this differently. And then, of course, had access to the quality questions to ask myself. I think that's the first thing, is the willingness to even want to look at something to be more neutral than be reactive, because anytime you're reactive, you're just taking up that, as I said, time and space in your mind, and when you're doing that, you're not going to be able to achieve much. But when when you see things being on the way, you just literally, it's almost like I call it, I mean, I like cricket, right? So it's like when you're when you're there, and it's like, okay, all right, that one was a 4, okay, that one was a 6, this one, and then it's like you'll get oh, that's out, and you go, great, how do I get back in the game? So it's just like, it's the next innings. That every challenge, that we're going through, I don't know where my analogies are coming from. Clearly, cricket's on my mind, but I'm missing.
All right, we love sporting analogies. It's fine.
Yeah, I'm missing my cricket now. But it's very much the challenges that we get is almost like the next innings it's taking us to, because when we dealt with one challenge, doesn't mean we're ever going to get rid of them. We just go on to the next one. And if we are living in our highest priority and we're doing things that are important to us, we welcome the challenges. When we're doing things that are, really low in our priority list, the things that we don't, that we need outside motivation for, not the things that we're inspired by, we'll want to avoid any type of challenge, because it's easier to do that. And we'll go, oh, well, now we've got a challenge that I'll kind of give up. But, whoever's listening here, I mean, whether you're a mom, whether you're a professional, whether you're, your own business, if that's really important to you, whatever challenge comes, it's like for a mom, you've got a crying baby at night. That's a challenge, but you look to overcome it, because bringing the baby up is important. And it's the same thing with us business owners that are experiencing these challenges now. If it's important enough for you and you ask the quality questions to help you see that whatever is going on for you now is actually helping you on the way. And I don't perceive coronavirus to be negative. I don't perceive it to be positive. I perceive that there are drawbacks and downsides and negatives, and there are positives, upsides, and benefits equally. Is it a bit of a like, come and rock my world in the middle of when I'm kind of okay? Yes, but okay, now I'm adjusting, because if we just look at stress, we'll tend to do stress because you and I both know it's a state that we can change. So I say we do it when we're not being adaptable to change, because you only have resilience when you're adaptable to change. Otherwise you'll just do stress, because you'll be like, oh my God, this is happening and now I'm getting all stressed and I can't see a way out and I can't do this. But I think enough of us have gone through what we perceived to be stressful situations, and we've come out of them. It's it's like you and I were just saying a little while ago about looking back and going, yeah, I overcame that. So anything you're experiencing moving forward is no different. And I do like to tell people that you're never given a challenge you can't solve, and there are reasons that you get specific challenges and other people don't, and other people get challenges that you don't. The other way around as well. It's like, if you see it, there's all different challenges because you're ready for the ones that are given to you.
Yeah, there was, as soon as you were saying that, there was a quote that came to mind, but it's fizzled out of my head. But it'll come back to me. But there's a quote that kind of sums exactly what you said up really nicely. And the other thing you were talking about reminds me of what Jim Carrey says as well. He goes, things are not happening to you, they're happening for you. And again, I was just writing about that literally about half an hour ago. And I think that's so true. Like, again, it does come down to the perception of it. But like, for me, this whole period of time has actually been quite incredible, because as you saw, right, just before or just as lockdown was beginning, I injured my knee, and I was getting ready for the marathon. And to be honest, I wasn't 100% ready to the point and be satisfied. So I was actually kind of glad that my injury happened, because it gave me more time to prepare. And then also what's happened is that obviously we've been at home. Me and my wife have been at home. We work in the same office space as well, so we're always together. But we've actually, I know this has been a challenge for some people, and don't get me wrong, there's been moments, but it's actually brought us much closer together. And we actually go for walks in the morning together, and even on the days when I run, I kind of run back and forth. We keep pace with each other. I've been reading a book a week or listening to an audiobook a week, and I've been devouring knowledge like I've never devoured in my life before. I've learned so much more, and I'm just going through this incredible phase, right? Don't get me wrong as well, like you, I've faced my challenges as well. Hell yeah, I faced my challenges. But equally, it's also been one of the most incredible times for me as well.
Yeah.
And that's the way I've taken it on board. Now, I don't know about you, right? There's another sort of slightly different term for this, which is imposter syndrome, but this is slightly different. I don't know about you, but do you ever feel, so this is more of a personal question to you, that little bit of guilt when things are going well for you and other people are going through a really shitty time? Because I think that for me is quite hard sometimes, because you don't want to come across as being, as rubbing it in someone's face, if you know what I mean, right? Now, I know a lot of people will come to you because they're seeking your help, but there are equally a number of people who may look at your situation and think it's all right for her, it's okay for her. How dare she come to me and tell me all this stuff? Because I've got 4 kids to look after. I'm by myself. I'm a single parent. I've lost family during coronavirus. This, that, the other. So I'm kind of playing devil's advocate for a bit.
Yeah.
But I'm sure you've experienced it too, right? And you go through these motions. I know I do. And how do you keep yourself balanced and centered in a state like that when you're approached by people, as I know I am too, and I'm sure you are as well, daily, where they're going through a traumatic time, and it's easy then to feel almost a sense of guilt for the position you're in as opposed to them. How do you keep yourself on an even keel, keep yourself in that balanced, grateful state, and not get too, mowed down into one state or the other? How do you what sort of tricks or tactics do you use, or kind of methods do you use to keep yourself going and keep yourself in a good state?
Yeah, I think the gratitude and centered state are fleeting moments that we experience. So no one can ever stay there, so like completely the whole time. I think with that line, you know, that peaceful, what we perceive to be peaceful line happens at the end of our life when the monitor goes dee, you know, that's when you get.
What you mean your life isn't perfect all the time? Come on. You always look so radiant, so well. Come on, I don't believe you.
And you know what, like the more my clients, sometimes my clients you know, even think that I let them know the shit that's going on in my life, you know, so that they see me as human, just as human too, you know. And for that, I mean, like I said, I put my challenges up, you know, on my social media so people know what it is I'm going through, that it's not all, you know, what do they call it, bed of roses for anyone, because I'm just as human as anybody else. So yeah, my challenges might be in different ways, but it doesn't mean I've you know, suddenly transcended all my challenges and, you know, reached enlightenment kind of thing. I don't think there's anybody on the earth that has, you know. And I think,
well, I think if you do, you're dead anyway. You leave your body.
I was going to say, exactly.
Yeah.
I think whoever tells you, just check their pulse, because you have to have a judgment in order to have a physical form, you know, which is obviously, you know, on a science level. We can explore that in a second. But I think what's really important, Amit, is that when clients come to me, and I do sometimes deal with, you know, what people perceive to be very traumatic experiences. And I think when you say what allows me to stay in that state is that my certainty exceeds their doubt. My certainty that there is an absolute order in what's happened for them, a bit just like how you said Jim Carrey's quote, it's happening for you, not to you. My certainty that whatever they've gone through is happening for them exceeds their doubt, which is, I'm not sure this is happening for me, it's happening to me. And I think that any time, and look, that hasn't come overnight. You know, that certainty hasn't just gone, oh, well, you know, suddenly I wake up with the certainty. No, it's come by working on myself for so many years, but also working with clients that, but this is where going back to where I said I didn't want to work with clients unless I'd, you know, applied the tools and the Di Martini method in my own life to see where is the perfection that he talks about. You know, where is this certainty of, yes, there is always going to be both sides. And it was that, you know, over and over of all the experiences that I'd been through that I thought was traumatic at the time, that I thought was painful. When I saw that in my life, and then when I started to work with clients and I was seeing it more and more in their life, I mean, I've been doing what I do now for like, gosh, nearly 15 years. So seeing that, there is, I can honestly say, you know, with hand on my heart, is that there's nothing somebody hasn't been through that doesn't have a hidden divine order in it. It's just a matter of asking the right questions. So, you know, sometimes when people come to me, they'll say, which is why I get this kind of feedback, is she's very supportive of you, but she is a bull. They say she's a bull, or she's really challenging you, or she'll really poke you where it hurts, because I want them to see the perfection in their life. I want them to see that once they get to that state of gratitude, of not acceptance of, yeah, I accept what happened to me, gratitude to the point where they say there is nothing I would change about what I've been through, and I would go through it again without changing anything. That's I kid you not, let me show you. Look, I have a magic wand in my office, right?
I love it.
and I actually say, so I have a magic wand. Is there anything that you would like to have changed about that? And until they say no, I don't stop. And I think that's what, when I have to deal with clients in that way, that's what keeps me centered. Do I feel guilt when my life's kind of going great, as you said? No, because I know it's not always going great. I know that there has the other side. So also, I think, you know, what ends up happening is that when you see that, again, when you know that other people, whatever they're going through, has both sides, and it's just a matter of them seeing that order, you don't get attached to the fact that what they're seeing is negative, and you start going, poor you. And for that, whether, you know, people call me, oh, you're not compassionate, or what? No, well, in fact, when you look at the definition of compassion, you know, the compassion means that you're buying into somebody else's story because it's a wound that you haven't healed yourself. Now, if I feel that I have compassion for someone, I know there's a part of them that's reminding me of a part of me that I haven't yet seen the perfection in. And I've only ever, about 2 or 3 times in my whole coaching career, stopped client sessions because I've noticed that. And I've said, I need to stop the session right now. I just need to go and do some work for myself, because I can't bring order to your chaos unless I see the order in it for myself. And once I've gone away and done that, like, you know, sometimes I've been stuck on a session, and when I realized that, I and don't, you know, my client was pissed off with me for actually, you know, canceling. He's like, are you being serious? I'm like, yep. And I know why. And when we came back, like 15 minutes later, we were done with his situation. And he was like, what just happened? Why did it take us so long last time? I said, because I couldn't see the order in it. So therefore your doubt was it was actually overpowering my doubt as well. So therefore we were 2 people who are doubtful that there's actually anything going on here that's going for you. And that's like putting 2 people together that are going to kind of go, oh, that's really bad. And that, you know, so until I could see that, there was no way I was going to be able to help him. So I think the more and more we start to see that, and I'm very say that's why I spent the time before I worked with anybody for the coronavirus challenges. I thought, if I don't see the order in this myself, I will not be able to help people through this tough time.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And when you were talking, that reminded me of a situation I was in as well with a client who'd lost a child to suicide. And I remember when I took that on board, I really had to be ready for that. And actually, I felt I got ready quite quickly. And I say that because I've experienced so much loss in my life as well, that I felt very certain that I could help them through this period of their life and get them to see the balance and understand it. And the reason I kind of asked you that loaded question a little bit, right? Because it was kind of a self-inflicted thing as well. And it made me realize that actually sometimes if you're posting on social media, because someone said it to me recently as well, they said it's okay for you. I can see your life is going really well right now. And I'm like, and this is why actually I put up a video. I think you may have seen it about 3-4 months ago, saying that actually I think people they don't take it the wrong way, but people see it the way they want to see it. But ultimately, actually, if anything, coaches have a lot more to go through, because they are taking on not only their own stuff, but other people's stuff as well. Don't get me wrong, everyone's going through something to a level. But as a coach, you have to be ready to be able to be in a position, right, as you said, to be able to take on board what someone else is saying and have that certainty that you can help them through that, and also not let it affect you, right? You were talking about it, that sometimes when you were with those 2 or 3 clients, it was, you know, you had to stop for a second because their reasoning was overpowering you. And I think doing what we do, we're in a situation where we've got to be ready to take on board pretty much anything that comes our way. I know I've dealt with a variety of things, not only in my life, but what other people have dealt with as well. And so my life is definitely far from perfect, far from going good all the time. I have my ups and downs, just like everyone else. I could be feeling perfectly on top of the moon 5 minutes, and then 5 minutes later, I'm as like, what the hell is going on with me right now? But I know what it takes to keep me relatively centered during the course of a day so that I can manage myself and my life much better. But yeah, so let's talk a little bit more, because you touched upon it as well, this whole idea of, you were talking about it. Firstly, of course, priorities, values, things like that, the whole concept of axiology, which I'm pretty sure that not everyone will know about, but it's an important thing to bring into this as well. And then we'll talk more about the perception side of things as well. So yeah, kind of touch upon that and your learnings and experience in that, you know.
Yeah, sure. Well, I do perceive that values, not like what normal people call honesty, integrity, authenticity, or loyalty or anything like that, but values being what's most important to us, and really it operates in a hierarchy, and it's the fundamental, almost master key to understanding yourself and other people. And I tell you what, like, this was a game changer for me to understand human behavior, because the challenges I was going through, the only question I had there was just one question. It started with W and ended with why, which was why. You know. It was very much why is this individual being like this? Why am I doing this? Why are they reacting in this way? Or why? And it almost like, you know, it was all outside, pretty much blaming, but you know, you kind of look at it and you just go, why? Why is this all happening? Why are these people being like this? Why are they acting in this way? And why am I reacting in this way? And I think values really gave me the answer to that. The study of axiology, as you said, goes right back to ancient Greeks. And, you know, I learned it all through Dr. Steve Martini's eyes, and then went and researched it myself. And it is very much the most important ology there is to understanding human behavior, but it's the least studied ology, which is really interesting, right? Because you've got all the other sociology, psychology, and all this. But when we talk about axiology, people don't really, you know about it. So the study of axiology, the Greeks really understood. And what they said is that whatever's most important to us is actually our, you know, chief aim. It's what's most important. It's the end in mind that we have. And they called it actually telos, the actual word for what we would call your inspiration, your mission being telos. That's what they called it. And then they made a further study called teleology. Now, the study of teleology is meaning and purpose. What is our life? What's the meaning and purpose behind our life? So the meaning and purpose behind our life comes back then to what values are. And so values are the, as I said, is another word I like to give it, because I know you said, you know, we like to simplify, is your GPS that's directing, you know, your soul. You turn left, you turn right, kind of thing. And what that does is, what it is when you actually understand what it is, it's operating in a hierarchy from what's most important right down to what's least important. And whatever is most important to you, you are inspired from within to do. You don't need anybody to remind you to do it. It's almost second nature. And anything that's low in your priorities, you will always need outside motivation to do it, which is why sometimes people say to me, are you a motivational speaker? Or a motivational coach? And I love that question, because I say, no, I'm never going to motivate you to do something you don't want to do. I can help you be inspired, which comes back to your podcast name here, Feel Inspired, right? Because people will be motivated, and it has, you know, it has a kind of, I'd say, a temporary effect, you know, short term, but eventually, you know, you will always go back to what your values are. So, you know, it's from what's most important right down to what's least important. Whatever is most important on our list, we will be reliable, disciplined, and focused. And whatever is least important, we will hesitate, procrastinate, will frustrate. And as I said, we need outside motivation to even get us to do it. We'll only do it if someone either punishes us or rewards us, you know, whereas whatever we're inspired by, you know, we don't need to be reminded. And when it comes to that, whatever we are most inspired by, and that means, like, you know, so for example, if somebody in a household, you know, there's a typical mother, a household mother, you know, she's going to filter everything through those values. So if she's a mom, she's going to look for children's things, you know, everything to fulfill her being a mom, which is children's clothes, children's shoes, children's books. And let's say, you know, she's married to a businessman, he's going to filter everything through his business side of things, right? Which is where he's going to be operating from. Now, if the mother challenges him in his highest priority, which is his business, he's going to feel challenged because she's challenging his highest priorities. He'll shut down, not want to communicate with her, because now he says, you're basically challenging my highest priority, and therefore you're bad. Yeah. And the opposite, obviously, if she supports him in the highest priority, he's going to label her good. So these values, when I said understanding human behavior, the reason is, you now understand yourself. So you understand, okay, this is what makes, you know, makes me feel inspired, as you said. And I'm obviously doing it from within. I don't need to be reminded to do it. I'm making my emotions now against this value list. Because if you challenge me, I'll be mean. If you support me, I'll be nice, which then brings in, you're never going to be nice or only nice or ever only mean, because you're going to be nice and mean, kind and cruel, giving and taking, all based on these value system. And then you also make your decisions based on it too. So, if we make our decisions that somebody's giving us an opportunity to do something, let's say, we're only going to say yes if we see it fulfills our values and our priorities. There are times that people will say, I'm too busy. And they're never too busy. They're just putting their priority of what they're doing higher than the opportunity or, what's another, I was trying to think of another word for opportunity now. Can't even remember now. Option, right? They're giving you an option. Whatever option you're giving them is just not, they're not seeing how it's fulfilling their priorities. Remember I said that radio station, WIIFM, what's in it for me? That's what we're thinking the whole time. What's in it for me? What's in it for me? As much as people say, by the way, they don't, or there is a selfless act, they've always got something in it for them. Otherwise they wouldn't do it. And that again goes back to their values. By the way, I just want to run off on the little story here about this selfless act, right? Because the first time I heard this, I was a bit like, really? What? So they can't be anything that can just be like for no reason? And I thought, but what about the people, in the Gurdwara, which is obviously the Sikh temple, right? I thought, what about those people that go and do these, seva, they call it, right? So it's charity work. What about them? So you know what? I thought, I'm not leaving this to people, for anybody to tell me. If someone's told me something, I'll test it out, right? So I went one Sunday to the Gurdwara, and there's a few regular kind of aunties and uncles who are there pretty much every week, even during the day, in the weekdays. And I chose 3 people, one that worked in the kitchen, one who would tidy up the shoes, and one who would sit on the within the kitchen area, but not actually cooking, but he would just sit there. Anyway, I went to these 3 people, and I said to the guy who cleans the shoe area, I said, why do you choose to do this? Every week you're here, or during the day you come here. Why do you actually come here to do this? And he said, well, when I'm here, he said, I do get to meet all different types of people that come and give their shoes, And I thought, so what does that give you? And he goes, I just love meeting new people. And I thought, that's interesting. So he's clearly getting that met while he's doing what people would normally call selfless. Whereas in that, there's a selfless and equally selfish act being done, right? He's serving himself as he is equally serving other people. I'm not saying it's good or bad, but I saw an exchange there. And I thought, okay, that's one. Let me go and ask the auntie who does all the cooking, And so I said to her, what about you when you're preparing, the langar? What is it? Why do you come and do that and make the effort? She goes, I get to meet all my friends while we're cooking the food. And, we have a good chinwag, and we start talking about all these things, and we talk about different recipes as well. And then she said the ultimate thing, because I was like, so how does that help you? How does that help you? She said the ultimate is when they do cook the langar, and people come at the end and they say, it's really nice langar today. She says that for me is very fulfilling. So I was like, okay. And ironically, she lives alone. So if you think about, she lives alone, she wouldn't have that at home. She comes to the Gurdwara, she comes to the temple to get that value, that priority of hers met, which is I feed people. I'm not feeding anybody at home. I'm on my own. Just feed my one self. And you're not gonna typically go, today I made some really good food.
Unless you're looking in the mirror and you're a little bit
yeah. And then the third guy, I said to him, and I said, what do you get from coming here? And you just sit, and he just basically said, I get to I get really connected with my creator by listening to the shabads, by listening to the hymns that we have there. And he goes, I just get to do that. So the reason I bring that up, because it's just to say that doing selfless or selfish it's not one-sided. It's to understand that we are all getting an exchange, no matter what, depending on how we look at it. We're all getting our values met. And the only time you're in relationships or you're in friendships or you're working for someone, you will only ever be loyal to fulfilling your own highest priorities. And if other people in those relationships fulfill it more than anybody else, you're with them. Otherwise, you're looking for somebody else better on the market in terms of relationships, as you know. So, you know.
Now, I know there's going to be a lot of people watching that who are going to disagree with this initially, because obviously to them it could be quite a new concept.
Yeah.
But I tell you what is quite interesting is exactly what you said. And if I try and reiterate it, I'll be paraphrasing a lot. But it's Denzel Washington talks a lot about this. And in one of his speeches, one of his commencement speeches, he was talking about this. He said the highest form of service is self-service, something along those lines. And I think people don't always realize that. I mean, I would probably phrase it slightly differently. I think people want to serve, but also serve themselves. And I think, it comes in equal measure. And I think it's something important to recognize. Like you said, right, it's about our values and what we find is our highest priority for ourselves. And when we understand that, and rather than try and fight against it, but acknowledge it, then you're working with yourself rather than get it and pushing against something which is not, serving you, by trying to, push it away. But it's actually true, and you understand that actually, and for me as well, the point being, the ultimate point about this is that it in the form of higher self-service, right? We've come full circle now. You're able to serve better, as like you were saying, right? You need to make sure, to use a common film example, right? You filled your cup first before you went and tried to fill anyone else's, which I think it's fundamental.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that whole and you said, you're right. People do. When I heard it, that's what I'm saying. When I heard that concept the first time, I was like, nah, this doesn't sit right with me. So this is like, I had to go and test it, right? My own kind of almost field research in the place that I thought people do most selfless acts, right? But when we see what is actually living an inspired and meaningful life, my definition of living an inspired and meaningful life is service to others equals service to self. Because if you serve other people, you are serving yourself in the same way, in the same moment. You're giving a service, you're giving something, and that is actually fulfilling whatever's most important to you.
Bravo, I completely agree. We've kind of digressed a little bit, but I'm not too worried about that. But I want to kind of talk a little bit about going back to the original topic, which is about kind of our mindset mastery.
Yes.
And especially in these challenging times. So with everything going on right now, with everything happening, it being over the news, this is going on, that is going on, that the world is collapsing around us as we know it. The climate, or this polarized political climate, if you like, coronavirus and everything else going on, right? How can someone remain on a relatively even keel considering everything that's going on right now? What can the average person watching this, what's the best bit of advice you can give them? Because I feel very privileged that I've been in a situation that I'm at this stage in my life I am right now, considering where we're at, what's going on. But I had to go through a lot to get here. And to get to this point, I had to, like I said, go through a lot, but it means that I'm able to then evaluate and change my perception of what's going on around us right now. But not everyone's in that situation. For some people, this could be, we talk about the younger generation or just people in general who are struggling to make sense of everything going on. What would you say to people like that? Or someone, the average person who's just watching this right now? And I know there's no average person as such per se, but, for want of a better phrase, someone who's just trying to live their life and just do the best they can.
Yeah, I think whatever situation we're in, I mean, and you mentioned something very earlier on, which is polarities. And I think, yes, there are all these challenges going on, with the coronavirus, is the Black Lives Matter, all this kind of thing. And it's very interesting when you understand that there is always both sides. You'll see that the more constrained we've become through coronavirus, the more we're fighting from freedom in the Black Lives Matter. It's like, you see these perfect poles, of two opposites, and you go, you see, this is where basically the balance is happening too. But I think when we look at all of this, and as you said, when the average person just goes, how do I deal with what's going on? Well, first of all, whenever we are not appreciating our current life and not seeing it being on the way in our life, and we're kind of saying, no, it's in the way of what was going on before, we've created a fantasy in our mind, because we're thinking that life would only be better if we didn't have this, we didn't have this, and we didn't have this. It would be better if we had this, and we had this, and we had this, and this was going on. So we already have a fantasy of how we think life should be, and now our current reality isn't matching that fantasy. So therefore, we'll do all these like negative emotions. Because anytime, you see, we only have two forms of fear in our life. We either fear losing those things we like, and when things are going great for us in our perception, we don't want to lose that, so we fear losing that. And anytime that things are going in our perception bad, or we're seeing other people go through it, we fear having that in our life. We fear gaining that in our life. Those are the two fears that drive us, really. And the moment you see that if you had your life the way you wished and hoped it should be right now, the key question to ask is, what are the drawbacks? What are the downsides? What are the negatives if my life was like that right now? And you keep listing them and you keep bringing them up, and don't cop out and say, oh, I don't know. No, really hold yourself accountable and ask those questions, because yes, the very thing you think is positive does have the other side, because you can't get a one-sided magnet in life. You can't have one without the other, which is very much like the glass is half full and it's half empty at the same time. It's not one or the other. So if we hold yourself accountable and really ask yourself, what are the downsides if my life really looked like that right now? And only keep going until you see it being neither good or bad. Not when you suddenly now go, oh, that would be really bad if I had that, because you've just gone too far. All these questions I'm giving you are just to bring you into balance so you can see it being neither good or bad. And that's when you have gratitude for your life. The other is, when you see things to be negative of whatever's going on, write a list of everything you're experiencing that you perceive as negative in your life right now. Anything that's going on, any challenge you're going through, and ask, how does it serve me right now? How is it helping me achieve what's most important? What is it giving me that I would not have if I didn't go through this challenge right now? And again, keep listing it. Don't, I'm going to say it again, hold yourself accountable. Don't say, I can't see it. I can't is just your brain saying you don't want to. If you've got a desire to look, you will find the answers. Your intuition is very strong, and your intuition is this part of the brain where, let's say, I'm going to give this really simple. It's like, when something's going amazing in your life and suddenly you get this voice going, this is too good to be true. Well, that is your intuition letting you know you've gone far too above balance line, and it's trying to get you to come down by looking at the downsides. And when we're going through the crap in our life, that voice in our head goes, gosh, there's got to be something good that comes out of this. And that's our intuition trying to say, hey, listen, mate, you're not looking at the upside. You're not looking at the benefits. Let's take a look at that. And the moment you bring your fantasy off this pedestal you've got it on, and you bring that down to balance, and you bring your current reality out of what you think is a pit, and you bring that back to balance, you have true gratitude for your life. You see that all these things that are going on, be it coronavirus, be it, not making money or whatever it is, you see that to be perfect. You have more gratitude for your life with no desire to change it. And when that happens, let me tell you, the people I've worked with in these last 4 or 5 months, the people that have been able to be in that space have attracted more opportunities, more creativity than they've ever done before, because they're operating from that space, not a reactive space.
Beautiful. Well put as well. Really, really well put. I think that's so needed right now with everything going on. because I think for most people, seeing it almost is a bit of a shock to the system with everything going on. I mean, you're right that there is always so much going on in the world, but I think we are in an unparalleled time, which is also not necessarily a bad thing. I think out of chaos comes clarity sometimes as well. So I think this is a very powerful time, but sometimes when you're in the thick of it is when it's hardest to remember this, hardest to apply some of this. And speaking firsthand, I can attest to that as well. And that's where the real challenge lies. And also what you were saying as well was reminding me that of a quote that I've kind of coined, which is turn your pain into power, turn your struggles into strength, and allow your challenges to make you into a champion. Because I think it's through those that we will find who we truly are, who we truly choose to be, and what it is we're inspired to do, what our calling is. And so I think that these times of challenge and uncertainty will actually ultimately bring out the best in us. That was a faux pas if ever there was one. Bring out the best in us. And now I've lost my train of thought because of that.
Because you thought of that so much. Yeah, no, absolutely. I think it does bring out the best in us. So I think also when if we just take a look at whatever this one affirmation that I say that I think Dr. Steve Martini, I might be paraphrasing it myself, is that everything we're experiencing is bringing us back to our true authentic self. It's allowing us to come back to us, so sometimes we can, go away from that. And again, the challenges we experience bring us back to that true authentic self that we're meant to be.
Definitely, yeah. So what's been of all the experiences you've had, right? What, like I just mentioned as well, that sometimes I think, in the thick of it, it can be the most difficult time to remember this. And this is one of the things that I teach in my life mastery skills, is being able to recall this information when you're in the thick of it. Can you tell us a bit about a time in your life when you've been in the thick of it and you've kind of not applied this, but you have got to that point eventually, but you've been in a really challenging time in your life, and how you were then able to turn it around? Was it just a question of enough time passed that things got a little bit better, or was it something specific you did?
Before I came across, obviously, this work, it was very much that I would say that has been my most thick of it. But if I'll give you two examples. One where I've had access to the work. Now I have my own coach. So I know that when I'm in that, if people are turning to me, there is obviously going to be things that I need to have somebody there that's wise to, not that I need to, I love to have her there, is, hey, listen, you know what? I'm actually right now can't see this whole thing, and I just need you to ask me the right questions. And obviously, as a coach, it's great to have a coach because they are looking for your blind spots, just like you're looking for them in your clients. So right now, I have an ongoing coach that I use, and she helps me through my challenges, anything that I'm unable to do. Obviously, there are things that I'm able to work through myself, but then I make a list of things that, that I'm not really able to do. And I have her there helping me do that. But I think the thick of it was when I was really most, I think, emotionally volatile. And I think it was those challenges, obviously, that brought me to this work, but it still needed me to work on them, was when I was in relationships. And my relationships, my partners would decide to outsource parts of our relationships. Now, I call that outsourcing, and most, as you said earlier, the average person would call that cheating, and I can only call it outsourcing now because I knew that I'd broken through that when I called it that. Until I got there, I still would call it, cheating. They cheated on me. But when I realized, my part that was played in that, but also how that was absolutely serving me. I mean, you see, anything that we haven't learned to love is going to repeat until we have learned to love it. And when I mean learned to love it, it's see both sides of something and actually go, I see there were downsides, because we're already knowing that the minute we label something bad, we already know it's got downsides. But when we see there were equal upsides and see it to be neutral, we're able to move on from that. And I think that was my biggest challenging time. But I'm so grateful for that period of my life. One, I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing unless it was for those two experiences. And they happened twice, you know, one relationship, then the next one. And I'm going, what the hell is going on here? You know, until I really, I used the Steve Martini method to actually dissolve my emotional charges I had on those relationships. And then it came to the next one and it didn't happen. And I'm going, isn't that interesting? Like the moment you see, because obviously the universe goes, all right, you learned your lesson, so we'll give you another one. It won't be that one. We'll just give you another relationship challenge.
But just take you have a slight twist.
Yeah, but I think at that time, I mean, I would say that was when I was in the brink of it. That was the very thing that was affecting my work. Also, I mean, I had health challenges then too. You know, and that, I think that part of it was, can I really see how, you know, being in this position with my health, not being able to walk, like, is that something that can even have an upside? No, I'm going, no, it just can't. You can't convince me that there is. I mean, I had that about this whole cheating challenge. I remember when I was like, no, there cannot be anything that can be an upside to this. But I had somebody quite stern, you know, to help me through that. And John was there too, you know, and I was able to break through that. And I think that was when I see that and I look at that now, I go, yeah, that was outsourcing, because clearly priorities were not being met. And, you know, we only ever look outside the relationship when we don't see things being fulfilled inside the relationship. You know, there are other ways to deal with it too when we don't, if as long as we see what is the other partner doing that helps us, then you have a different type of relationship. But I remember this one, well, it's a funny quote, but John says, whatever you're not willing to do in a relationship, be willing to delegate. So I quickly started getting things back into our relationship too, that I was being delegated. So, but yeah, I think that would be one of the key times where it was quite difficult and challenging to even want to look at the other side and not want to blame, you know, because it was very much like, oh no, but it's their fault, it's all them, and how could they do it to me? And yeah, so that was one of the challenging times.
You kind of touched upon something when actually I think is a really important one as important topic, especially at the moment, and one that we can create a soundbite out of this as well. So I'll pose you the question: when it comes to people who are single right now and going through the motions of trying to meet a partner, and I think the common theme, one of the most common themes I hear is repeating patterns of, you know, that people are, let me phrase it a different way, people are repeating and attracting the same type of character or person in life over and over, whether it's someone who's just out for one thing, someone who doesn't value them, someone who doesn't is, you know, or not very proactive in the relationship, and so doesn't know how to take action, for example, right? So these are several things I hear all the time. So what do you say to people who are constantly attracting the same thing over and over again? How can someone collapse that thing from happening so that they actually start to meet someone different, you know, the person that they want to meet, they aspire to meet?
This might sound, you know, I don't know what we want to say, but hey, I'm just going to be honest, because I've had it said to me and it shifted things for me. So we only attract things into a life that we haven't learned to love. And if they're repeatingly, like I just shared with you, my thing was around cheating. If it's repeatingly happening, then there is something that you have an infatuation with. I had an infatuation that all men must be loyal. When you're in a relationship, you're only loyal to that woman. You don't understand, Amit, like the degree of that infatuation and that stern belief and it being so one-sided. I can't tell you, like, you know, if you'd met me back in 2005, you know, you'd be like, oh my God, really? So I'm not surprised the universe brought me the other side to actually humble me from this self-righteous view that I had. And if people are experiencing the same attraction that they're having into their life of specific people, look at where you are addicted to its opposite. Because whatever you're addicted to, this fantasy of this individual, you'll be attracting its opposite to help you see that the other side also has benefits. I think when we look and see that, you see that, oh, well, when this, and normally the only reason it's repeating is because the first time you experienced it, you've seen it to be a bad thing. And because you saw it to be a bad thing, the whole lesson is trying to repeat until you've, you know, what I call is that when you see something as a blessing, which is blessing and lesson together, hashtag lesson, when you see it to be that, you're not trying to push it away. And I think when I was once I gone through my cycle of the outsourcing and I got to that point where I kid you not, I was at that space where I was grateful for it happened, and I was going, I'm looking forward to the next time it happens. That was what I had said. And because of that, it almost feels like I was not attached to it happening again or not happening. And it's in that space that you would then attract a partner that doesn't necessarily, if you take care of certain things, have to look outside the relationship. But again, if you're attracting like an individual that is, emotionally not forthcoming, for example, then clearly in the past, you've had a relationship where you've experienced that, you thought it was bad, you said to yourself, I'm never going to do that kind of relationship again. And the minute you say never, the universe goes, bam, I'm going to give you a few more of those until you go, I don't mind having that. And that I don't mind having that is almost that is the transformation, because when you say I don't mind having that, the universe goes, all right, you done that one, let's give you another one instead. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes perfect sense, I think. And I think something that's definitely much needed right now. People need to hear that and understand that they're going to have to make certain changes in order to get a different result. But it's so important, so fundamental right now as well. I think people are always trying to find something outside of themselves, and so long as they're doing that, they're always going to be getting a different kind of result to what they want. So
yeah.
It's so fundamentally important that people recognize that. So a couple of last questions for you, right? So
Amit, just one last thing, because you did say about the valuing, right? People attracting people who don't value them. Well, the one thing I would say to those individuals is, until you value you, the world on the outside won't value you. And so all these people that are coming in are they are just a reflection of where you're not valuing yourself. So if they're not valuing the time you're giving, for example, or something, those are areas that you're also not seeing within yourself that is worthy of love. And because, when you see that no matter what you've done or not done is worthy of love, you have started to value yourself. You started to master your own life. You will then not need this, I need somebody on the outside to value me, because I perceive myself and value myself enough that I don't need that outside, validation. So just wanted to kind of put that in there.
No, absolutely. So true. So true. And I'll definitely turn this into a soundbite for many people I know who struggle with that area of their life. So 2 final questions for you. Someone watching this, they're according to themselves, complete head case, all over the shop right now, no control of their emotions, their thoughts, they're all over the shop. What can they do to begin to initiate this journey of being in a level of mindset mastery? What can they do? What's the first few steps that someone would need to take in order to start regaining control of their mind, their life, and their emotions and so on? So what can they do?
Okay, so I think I've given the 2 main questions above before when we spoke, which is basically, if you're really volatile in your emotions, that's the first key thing, is really to get yourself centered, is ask, if you're experiencing something challenging, how's it serving me? Whatever you're fantasizing of how life should be, what would be the downsides? Those are the 2 key questions, from the Steve Martini method that I would say that would help you with that. I think the other thing is, we tend to make our life about all these small things when we don't have something big enough to focus on. And I think what happens is that people start to live a life, where things are done, by default and not by design. And what that means is that you're running it more so on the outside of what's happening, rather than how you'd love your life to look. So I'd actually like to say to people, and when you answer this, it doesn't mean, if you have something that isn't like this massive, oh my God, I'm going to serve all these people. It doesn't matter. I don't, there's no judgment on that. But one question you could ask is, if I knew I couldn't fail, what would I absolutely love to do with my life and get handsomely or beautifully paid to do it? And I would ask that question every night before you go to bed. I would ask it when you wake up in the morning, because when you ask it before you go to bed, your unconscious mind has already started to look for ways to fulfill that.
Repeat that question one more time.
Yeah. If I knew I couldn't fail, what would I absolutely love to do with my life and get handsomely or beautifully, handsomely for guys, beautifully for women, paid to do it?
I'm a beautiful man. It's all good. We're in the 21st century. It's all good.
Because I used to say handsomely, and when I said it to one lady, she was like, "But can I say beautifully?" I'm like, "Sure you can." So I was like, "In fact, I'll make sure I add that one." I think the reason with this is because sometimes what happens is when we don't know about that mission or that vision that we have, we make life about all these little things that are going on, and we hold on to them, and we become a victim of what our circumstances. So when we understand that question, and we start to dissolve the emotions in the way of living that mission, then we're not a victim of our history, we're a master of our destiny, which is allowing you to fulfill whatever's most important, that mission and vision. I think those few things, and definitely asking what is really important to me, what are my values, what are my priorities. I can give you a link to people can actually find out what their values and priorities are, so that they can actually see, well, where is everything operating from in the first place? Because if we know where we're now and we know where we'd love to be, well, then we can start to see how that can shift for us. But I think that question that I just gave you is so powerful, because what that does is, you see, when somebody comes to me and says, "Oh, I don't know what I want to do with my life though," and I go, you do. You're already living it, because you're already inspired by whatever you're spending your time, energy, money on. You're already doing it. Your highest values and your highest priorities are already your mission. But somewhere in the back of our brain, whatever it is that we'd love to do, we either think we can't do it because we're not going to make money, we don't know enough, our intellect doesn't enough, or I don't have the right body to do it, or what are my friends going to say if I want to do that? So that's why that first thing is, if I knew I couldn't fail, because everything else is just in your mind. And as long as we know what you'd love to do, well, then we can deal with all the emotions that come in the way of you fulfilling that. Does that make sense? And a lot of people, they're able to really come clean with that. And don't worry if you're not getting clear answers. Like, do it for a week, you'll start to see a pattern emerge. But if you're really, really not getting clear an answer, just know that you're allowing it to be clouded by other people's opinions. That's why it's not coming clear. It's just clouded by emotions.
Absolutely. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. I think it's so true. Final question for you, which is, I know we didn't get metaphysical today actually, but we can save that for a part 2, which is good. We can get deep and dirty into the metaphysical another day. And yeah, so final question for you as well, just about you personally. What's the legacy you want to leave on Earth?
My personal legacy is not so much attached to like my name, because that's just my physical form here now, but I really do want to help people see that they don't have to live a life where they are trying to live a fantasy, and see actually how beautiful, perfect the world already is. And it's like people are striving for this perfection, but asking the right questions allows us to see what's perfect right now. I want people to understand that living by their highest priorities, highest values is the most meaningful thing that they can do with their life. And the moment they start to see how they can connect to the divine, how they can connect to the perfection of the universe by asking the right questions, so that they don't have to go through the whole, as I said, the fantasy of, oh my God, it's all got to be positive. I want people to know that positive and negative mindset is something to embrace to get them what I call an optimum mindset.
Nice. I like that. I put a post up on LinkedIn today. I was talking about that, talking about goals, and I came up with my own acronym, SOUL goals, which is goals that originate from the spirit, that are optimal, that are uplifting and lucid. So that was my kind of acronym about goals and how we kind of can make goals for our lives and so forth. And that may be another topic for us to touch on at some point in the future.
Yeah.
But in the meantime, I would like to say thank you very much.
Oh, thank you. Big hug.
Yeah,
Thank
I know, big virtual hug.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me on. It's been amazing, and I've been looking forward to it for a year for you to invite me on, you see, so it was perfect timing.
I would say I saved the best to last, but I've saved the best until episode 17. There you go.
Yeah, I was gonna say you can't say that because there's more to come. So.
Definitely more to come. I'll say the best so far until episode 17. That's what it is.
Yeah, every guest you have, you could say, I've saved the best until now. Yeah.
And then I have to re-invite them and say they've just bettered themselves anyway. So do you know what? It's been an absolute pleasure, and there will definitely 100% be a part 2 to this as well, because I think there's so much to learn from all the stuff that you do. And to everyone watching right now as well, I just want to actually, one thing as well, I just want to say thank you for your motivating words, in this pandemic situation in the world. It feels good and positive to hear you both. So that was some lovely words we had earlier as well, which I think, like I said, I think it's pretty much needed at the moment. People need a bit of guidance and direction because they're feeling a bit more lost than they perhaps otherwise would be. And so I think having something to channel their energy towards, to their mindset towards, ideas towards, and start working towards as well, I think it's more important now than it's ever been before. So I want to say thank you for your time, and to anyone watching this, if you've just joined the live, do not worry, you can watch it back. But if you can't watch, you will be able to catch the audio on all major podcast platforms as well. It should be up there within 24 hours, but probably sooner. And what I'll also do is include all the links on the videos where you can connect with Manmeet as well. If you want to speak to her more or connect with her or get coaching from her or whatever it might be, then you'll be able to get in touch with her as well. So once again, I just want to say, you're welcome. I want to say thank you for being a guest and being such a wonderful guest and a lovely guest. And like I said, this is just the beginning.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to part 2. I think just as we finish, I'd like to just say to whoever's listening is you have a perfect gift here, a beautiful gift of life. Don't live it by default, live it by design.
Nice message to finish on. I love that. Good little soundbite to add to the end. Love it. And I'll also say as well, for anyone who's watching as well, you don't know this, but Manmeet had to prop her laptop onto like 4 boxes, podcast, as the computer was playing up. But she went all the way home to get her laptop and came back to the office as well. So bless you for doing that.
It's a challenge that I was going to endure to fulfill my highest priority.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much once again, Amit, and my love to Niyati, and I look forward to seeing you guys in person very, very soon.
Absolutely. Stay on with me as well. I'm going to end the live stream, and to everyone else, feel inspired and make sure you check out all the other episodes as well. And I will see you on the next episode. Have a beautiful week ahead. God bless everyone. Take care.